Episode 7, Sitting on the Clouds. Jacob never expected things would be handled like this. He had thought that Sophie and her parents would go directly to the college administrative office and make a complaint. But to his amazement, a sedan was sent to pick him up. Maybe it is an invitation to my own funeral, or a disguised kidnap? Whatever it is, I don't think they have any reason to harm me, Jacob thought as he stepped into the car. Jacob's roommates stared at the luxury sedan in astonishment. From what they knew about him, Jacob came from an ordinary background. They wondered what he had done to be taken away like this. The black sedan drove out of campus without incidents. On the way, Jacob restrained himself from asking the men sitting on either side of him any questions. He believed that he would get answers when he got to the destination. As the sedan was being driven smoothly, a sense of heroic tragedy rose in him, and Jacob started to wonder if he would ever come back. After about half an hour of traveling halfway across the city, the car came to the busy downtown. A skyscraper, about 70 stories high, came into view. Jacob had noticed the building when it came into sight, and he noticed the sign on top, MTX Group. Listed on the NASDAQ stock market in the United States, MTX was one of the biggest business groups in the States and undoubtedly a large business empire. "Sir, we have arrived." When the sedan stopped at the gate of the skyscraper, the two men got off and opened the door for Jacob. Glancing up at the skyscraper, Jacob felt a bit dizzy. After he got out of the car, he was ushered into the building by the two men who had driven him there. The receptionist, as beautiful as a movie star, glanced at the three of them and smiled. She didn't ask them to register and opened the security pathway for them. Jacob was suddenly struck with a wave of nervousness. The men led Jacob into an elevator before pressing the button for the 75th floor, the topmost floor of the building. The elevator started moving upwards, and Jacob felt dizzy and claustrophobic. He looked at his feet silently. Who on earth is their boss? Who can work in a place like this? He wondered. The trio had reached the top floor. The gates of the elevator slid open, and Jacob was greeted with bright red rugs, a gleaming lobby with golden decor, and magnificent chandeliers that hung on the roof above him. The lobby was as luxurious as a five-star hotel. The men remained silent while leading Jacob out of the elevator and ushered him forward. They stopped outside an office room with a sign that read, President's Office. Knocking on the door, one of them raised his voice and said, "Boss, we've brought the boy with us." "Bring him in." A dignified but fatigued voice came from the room. The man opened the door and ushered Jacob into the room. A big, magnificent office with an area of at least 200 square meters came into Jacob's view, and he couldn't help but let out a, "Wow!" Apart from Jacob's escorts, there were 4 men in the room. One of the men, who had a square face and a crew cut, locked his intense eyes on Jacob. "Is it on him?" he asked the man who had ushered in Jacob. "It is. I can feel it," the man answered carefully. "Sophie told me everything. I wouldn't cause you any trouble if you just hand it over now." The man, who seemed to be the president, looked sternly at Jacob. "I don't have it," Jacob said, grinding his teeth. Without further ado, the square-faced man spat out 2 words. "Search him!" 4 men jumped out and quickly grabbed Jacob's arms and shoulders while the men who brought Jacob here began to frisk him in a very professional manner. Jacob knew he had fallen into their trap, but he was sure they could do nothing to him when they found nothing on him. Just as he predicted, the man found nothing when he finished the first round of searching. When he began the second round, his professional frisking became rough and intrusive. Suddenly, the man raised his head in a panic. "Master? I've told you many times not to call me master. Call me boss." The square-faced man was enraged within seconds. "Yes, boss." The man pointed at Jacob. "The thing that belonged to Miss Sophie is in his stomach." The square-faced man froze, while the others' faces also changed expressions. After thinking for a few minutes, the square-faced man said, "Summon the elders." "Yes, boss." All the men in the room walked out, and only one was left standing beside the square-faced man. "Pick up Sophie from her school," the man told the escort standing beside him. "Yes, boss." The man followed the order and was out of the room promptly. Now, only Jacob and the square-faced man were left in the room. My name is Dracon. What is your name? The square-faced man gazed at Jacob and asked. Jacob, Jacob answered. Ah, yes, Jacob. You seem to be a good man, but this matter just got tricky, so you might have to stay here a little longer, he continued, still looking at Jacob. Okay. Jacob's face didn't reveal how he felt. Though Dracon's words sounded like a request, they were actually a command. He couldn't run away from here, nor could he remain calm while there was a strange object in his stomach, especially when the object seemed to be related to the tattoo. Take a seat. Dracon pointed at the seats beside him. Jacob walked over and sat on a leather sofa. Through the glass of the room, he had a complete view of the city and even a glimpse of the sea in the distance. They kept silent as the clock ticked away. About half an hour later, people began to rush in. They all looked confused and anxious. A little later, accompanied by a man, Sophie walked in. When she saw Jacob, she snorted with contempt. Of course, Jacob responded likewise. Soph, don't be rude to the guest. After all, this chaos is your fault. Dracon didn't want to scold her in front of everyone, but he had to shut her up. Sophie pursed her lips, looking defiant. In a few moments, more than a dozen people came into the room. Since everyone is here, let's begin the meeting. Sophie, you can come along too. After looking around, Dracon said with a tense expression on his face. A partition door opened automatically, and a small conference room that was connected to the office room came into sight. As everyone began to seat themselves in the conference room, Dracon turned to Jacob and said, Please sit here for a while and wait for the results of the meeting. Jacob had no choice but to nod his head in agreement. There was not much else he could do. He just hoped these people could find a way to take the bead out of him without surgery. Alone in the spacious office, he looked down at the city and tried to stay calm. He felt like he was sitting on the clouds. For a while, maybe for a few minutes, Jacob felt calm, knowing that the group next door was planning a way out of this problem. However, what he didn't know was that his fate was being decided in the next room.